Well, it's 12 o'clock. Welcome everybody to the April 6th Lunchtime Hot Topic. This is Brad Newenswonder. We've got 4 to 5 things we want to share with you today. We've got a host of people in here, and on the agenda today, we're going to be talking about, first of all, the Summer Impact Institutes. Give you some schedules and some of the events that'll be taking place there. Today, as well as 2 weeks from now and 4 weeks from now, we will continue to give you an update on what we know with the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, or ESSA, E-S-S-A. We also want to give you an update on our Visiting International Teachers programs, as well as an update on some TAS and co-teaching. So to get into it, again, as we go through this today, if you have any questions or ideas or anything for future Lunchtime Hot Topics, just email it to lunchtime@ksde.org, or while we're even going through this, if you have questions come up, submit those, and that way we know what we need to do to respond. So with that, we're going to visit a little bit about the Summer Impact Institutes, and I'm going to turn it over to Tammy Mitchell.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to update you on our Impact Institutes for 2016. As you know, the Kansas State Board of Education has set a new vision for Kansas education where Kansas leads the world in the success of each student. Kansans are demanding higher standards in academic skills, employability and citizenship skills, and the need to move away from a one-size-fits-all system that relies exclusively on state assessments from the No Child Left Behind era. This new vision calls for education calls for a more student-focused system that provides support and resources for individual success and will require everyone to work together to make it a reality. And that work begins now. So please join us at the Kansas State Department of Education, Division of Learning Services 2016 Impact Institutes and explore this new vision and how your work directly impacts that vision. The Impact Institute dates are June 14 and 15 at Emporia State University, and an identical session will be held July 6 and 7 at Fort Hays State University. I'd like to take this time to thank these two institutions for their partnership as they donate their facilities and the support that goes to that allows us to offer this opportunity to Kansas educators at a very low cost. There is something for educational professionals at every level. Whether you work with children in the preschool years, birth through grade 12, there is something for you. There are subjects across disciplines. There are interactive quarter and half-day sessions, and there are also deeper dive full-day sessions. Light breakfast, lunch, and snacks are included, and the registration is only $25. And again, special thank you to our partners and partners across KSDE as well. We've been able to keep this cost low so that we can encourage as many education professionals to attend as possible. We have a web page, and because I know that it is interesting to try to find things on our webpage, I thought I would kind of show you how to get there. So when you go to ksde.org, you can search under the letter D for the Division of Learning Services, and on the Division of Learning Services page, under Additional Resources, you can see where it says 2016 Impact Institutes. All of the information, registration, session descriptions can be found on our webpage. Here it shows where you can click to get the schedule of events so that you can really look at the topics and decide what best fits for your needs. Again, it's on our Kansans Can Impact Institute page. Questions about the Impact Institutes can be directed to the people listed on the right. Tierney Kurtdahl will take care of any questions you have about registration, facilities, paying, all of that. She's our logistics coordinator, and she will help you with that. If you have questions about the sessions, the content, the presenters, we have Julie Ewing and Don Gifford, who are co-chairs of the program committee. Their information is there as well. Feel free to ask them any questions that you may have. We're really excited about being able to provide this to you. I am the project director of the Impact Institute, so if Tierney or Dawn or Julie can't help you, please feel free to email me, Tammy Mitchell, tmitchell@ksde.org.
Can you go back to your picture real quick?
Okay.
Okay, just
great.
one infomercial here. This is Tammy Mitchell, and as of last week, she is now the assistant director in charge of early learning kindergarten readiness for Kansas. So, Tammy, congratulations on that new role.
Oh, thank you so much.
So, those of you out there, when you need to put a face to a job title for the person to reach out to for early childhood kindergarten readiness, you just heard her. That's Tammy. So, okay.
All right. Thank you, Brad, for that. And now I'm going to pass this on to Tate Taidman, who's going to talk to you about the Every Student Succeeds Act.
And as Brad mentioned, the Every Student Succeeds Act is the reauthorization of ESEA, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, and it was reauthorized by Congress last December 2015. And that is my title, Education Program Consultant. I'll skip over that picture because I look much younger than I did 10 years ago.
I love it when that happens.
Yes. So one of the things as we go forward, there's a lot of different items that we'll be talking about on the reauthorization, and we're going to be talking about these, sending out information. So look forward to webinars such as the hot topics. We'll also have information on the Title I Directors webinars that are one Friday a month. We'll have stuff going out on multiple listservs. We'll have fact sheets for the different programs coming out, and we'll also be providing frequently asked question sheets. There'll also be presentations at the Impact Institutes, which Tammy just talked about. We also have a couple major conferences coming up along with the Impact Institutes, the Leadership Conference in Wichita, July 27th and 28th, and the Kansas State Department of Ed's our annual conference, which is in Wichita, October 24th to 26th. Every now and then we're getting questions that we don't hear a lot about what's happening with ESSA or the reauthorization, and part of that is what we're going to talk about today, and the reasons why you're not hearing a lot is because there are different effective dates for the programs. And for the 2016-2017 school year, there's really only two effective dates that are going to have an impact on school districts. One is a part of Title I Part A, which is the Comprehensive Support and Improvement, or the Kansas Learning Network, which Tammy Mitchell is in charge of, and she's been giving updates and will give updates continually in hot topics and other methods. And then Title IX, the Part A McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act, was also reauthorized, and it will have an effective date during the 2016-17 school year also. We're going to focus on the McKinney-Vento today for the effective dates that will be coming up. And the first link there is for the Federal Register, which this publication just came out this past month, that has some of the general guidance and information about what the expectations and changes will be to the program. At that point, the effective date was expected to be July 1. There's been some questions about that, but as of now, we're still looking at starting the school year with the new parts of this law in place. The one thing we have confirmed is that the definition change which will eliminate the part of the definition of children who are awaiting foster care are qualified for homeless, will be effective on December 10th. So up until December 10th, students that are awaiting foster care will still qualify as homeless, but after December 10th of 2016, they will no longer qualify under the Homeless Assistance Act. However, in the 17-18 year, they will have protections under Title I, Part A. And we'll talk more about that as we get closer to those effective dates with that. Some of the major changes that will be occurring with the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act are listed on this page. There's more than just these 5, but we'll go into greater detail in homeless trainings and homeless presentations through other resources. The first one here is probably one of the ones that will be the most time consuming for liaisons in every district. The appointed liaison for every district will now be required to receive annual professional development. It will be up to the department to determine what those professional development activities have to be and what will meet the annual requirement things. As we go forward, we will be surveying districts, especially through the homeless liaison, about possible ways that people can accomplish receiving their professional development goals. We're expecting anywhere from webinars, anywhere to on-site, one-on-one trainings with possibly the National Center for Homeless Education and myself as the state coordinator. Another new piece is previously preschoolers did not have the right to school of origin, which under the new law, they will have the school of origin. So even if their families move, they will have the right to stay in that school they are previously attending. Where this becomes really important is that students who move have the right to transportation if it's needed to stay in the school of origin. So preschoolers will also end up having that right to transportation back to that school of origin. And with the different laws involving how we transport preschoolers, districts are going to have to be aware of this and be willing to understand, even though they might have students going to the same building, those preschoolers who are requiring transportation may require separate buses for that transportation. A second piece involving transportation is that students, once they become permanently housed, will still have that right for transportation back to their school of origin. Currently, districts may continue to transport those students, but starting next school year, even though those students become permanently housed, if it's in their best interest to stay in that school of origin, districts will be required to provide that transportation. And as we talk about school of origin, it is now listed in the law as school of origin is the building they are currently attending when they become homeless, is now the best interest of that student, unless the parents object or there's other outlying reasons. You know, travel, obviously, if we have a student in Topeka that becomes homeless, transporting them to Wichita and back is not reasonable. So there's still some things like that, but generally we're looking at the school of origin as the best interest of these students unless the parents object. And like we've mentioned before, there'll be many more updates and many more trainings as we go forward with each of the programs under ESCA reauthorization. McKinney-Vento is just one of the main programs that goes into effect for the 16-17 school year. So the rest of the programs will go over just in general that will have effective dates in the 2017-2018 school year. Title I, Part A, which is the improving basic programs operated by state and local education agencies, which is our largest funded of these title programs, will go into effect. The main change is what we mentioned before, which Tammy Mitchell oversees, is for the comprehensive support for schools under the Kansas Learning Network. As we go forward, that will be changing somewhat. We won't have priority and focus schools. At first, we'll have fewer schools involved, but there'll be different parts that Tammy will go into during her training that will explain that in more detail. Target assisted schools and school-wides have more broad uses that have been clarified. Many of these have always been available, but they weren't explicitly mentioned in the law, so a lot of people chose not to look at those areas. So when we look at our needs assessments, there might be other areas that we can use our Title I funds. Most people think of mathematics and reading as the two main areas. Those for most districts will stay that way, but there are other opportunities. Title I Part C, which is our migrant program. There's some very minor changes, but something to be aware of is that we are now a hold harmless state. And what that means is we're looking at significant funding cuts, and the hold harmless is going to keep us to $1 billion cut each year. Is going to be the maximum, and we're looking at that for potentially up to 3 to 4 years. So the amount of funding we receive and that we're able to put out to the local education agencies is going to be becoming smaller. So we need to make sure districts are aware of that. There'll be more information coming out from our department from Doug Boleen and Lori Hauk with that program. And the same thing with our Title I neglected or delinquent programs. Lori Hauk oversees that, and she'll be putting out information on our listservs and doing trainings and working with our school districts and agencies that work with those student populations. The next 4 title programs that we're going to be discussing, the first one is Title II, which is a preparing, training, and recruiting high-quality teachers, principals, and other school leaders. This title was completely rewritten, even though many of the activities under the previous Title II Part A that people were used to will be in, they still use it, will still be able to be used for those things, such as class size reductions, mentoring programs, core professional development, but is also adding a lot of other uses for professional development activities, and this will have a much broader effect on how districts can use these funds for professional development. You will not see a lot of information coming out from the department on Title II anytime soon, just because we will still be under a No Child Left Behind during the 16-17 school year. We don't want people thinking there's authorized activities during the school year before the 17-18. So you'll start seeing that information more toward winter and spring of next school year. With Title III, language instruction for English learners and immigrant students, one of the major changes you see in the title are students who are currently considered ELLs will now be considered English learners or just ELs. Another thing that's really big with Title III is the accountability mostly is currently in the Title III program. Most of that accountability will be moving to Title I. So the accountability requirements for our English learners will now be part of the Title I Part A requirements. Title IV Part A, Student Support and Academic Enrichment Grants. These will be formula grants that will go out to districts. There will be some different requirements for Title IV. This is a program we will be getting out information earlier than some of the other ones, since we currently don't have a Title IV formula grant. But there'll be 3 sections that these funds will be able to be used under. One is healthy and safe environments. The second is well-rounded education. And the third is technology and professional development for effective use of data and technology. What we are seeing is that there are many smaller competitive grants that are now mixed in and are uses and will be uses under Title IV. So there's some grants your districts may have received that they'll no longer have the opportunity to write competitively for in grants, but they'll be an authorized use in Title IV. There's also minimum funding. If a district receives less than $10,000, they are not allowed to have their own grant. They would have to be part of a consortium that combined has over $10,000. That's similar to what we do with our Title III. Also, if you have $10,000 grant to $30,000 formula grant, you'll have one set of rules and only have to address one of the three areas I mentioned with the well-rounded education, healthy and safe environment, and the technology. And districts over 30,000 will have to spend money in all three areas and will also have to provide a needs assessment to determine how they've decided to spend those funds. This slide shows the rest of the titled programs that were affected by the ESEA reauthorization. Title V is State Innovation and Local Flexibility. This is fairly similar to what used to be in Title VI, and it is our EdFlex, or it refers to our EdFlex, but it's actually our transferability, which now districts starting in the 17-18 school year will have, similar to what they had under the ESE waiver authority, is that they'll have 100% transferability. So if you want to transfer any of your Title II or Title IV funds, you would have the legal authority to transfer those into Title I programs. You may not, however, transfer out of Title I programs. This title also reauthorized the REAP programs such as Small Rural School Achievement and the Rural Low-Income Schools. So, and Nicole Clark and myself work on that. And so if you're receiving one of those two grants, those will still be available, and Nicole and I will be working with those with you. The next title is Title VI, the Indian Education, is what we see affected in Kansas. One of the things as we've looked through this is we know we have more districts that qualify for these funds than actually apply for them. The basic requirement is that you have 10 Native students or more in your district, and we're going to look at the data and reach out to some of those districts that would qualify but are not receiving that data to make sure they understand they do qualify. And in some cases, we know they might know that and choose not to do the grant applications. Title VII is Impact Aid. Dean Zeitz and Ryan Weir from our team and Craig Nuenswander from our finance team are the main people involved with Impact Aid. The two major districts affected by this program are Geary County and Fort Leavenworth, but we do have other districts that do receive some federal impact aid based on government lands that are in their school districts. So from those three individuals, you'll be receiving more information as we go forward. And then Title IX, the last title, is actually not reauthorization of ESEA, but of other programs such as Education for the Homeless Children and Youth, which we talked about earlier. And it also describes a preschool systems grant, provides various laws and reports, provides us information on the EdFlex waiver, which Kansas still qualifies for. So districts that currently receive the EdFlex ability on programs like school-wide or when they request carryover, those will still be available. And then it lists all of the other laws on the books that the change in definitions from ESEA also have an effect on. So that's a quick overview of when the different programs will become effective. And like we've said before, we will continue to update the field through various sources on this. If you have specific questions on ESSA, if you have questions for KSDE, those can be emailed to essaquestions@ksde.org, and I'll be the ones responding to those questions. We'll also be developing our FAQ sheets based on the questions we receive there and from the field. And if you have questions for the United States Department of Education on ESSA, their email address is essa.questions@ed.gov. So feel free to contact us with any questions you may have, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. And now I will turn this over to Phyllis.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Phyllis Farrer, and I'm going to talk to you now about the Visiting International Teachers Program. It's a timely topic because I know that many of you are thinking about, worrying about, and planning for staffing for next year. So although I'm borrowed slides from our general information about this program, I'm talking specifically about if you need a teacher for next year for specific subject areas, you might want to talk to me. So I am the World Languages and ESOL, or English Language Learner, English Language Proficiency Standards and Assessments person here at KSDE, and I am one of 2 coordinators for the Visiting Teacher Program and the lead contact for that program. Next week, I will be doing interviews with 4 candidates from Spain. So this is a very timely topic. The purpose of our Visiting International Teachers program is to provide teachers that can fill in spots where we are having trouble finding good candidates. But it has an emphasis on bringing people in who can share their language and culture, in addition to other quality subjects. The agreement we have, these are not teachers that are brought in by private companies. These are teachers that are brought in through official relationships with the Ministry of Education in Spain and the Ministry of Education in China. And if you want to see those agreements, they're actually on our web page. But what we benefit from by working directly with the Ministries of Education is that they provide an application process for teachers. They provide advisors for the teachers and for us as well. And they are working right now in their pre-screening process and actually set up the interviews that I will be conducting next week. We can bring in from Spain or China teachers who are qualified to teach a variety of subjects, and here you see listed the subjects that have been provided in the approximate 15 years of this program. We've had the agreement with Spain for the longest, so we've brought in quite a few Spanish teachers over the years, and especially high school teachers, middle school and high school teachers. This year we have our largest number of teachers are dual language immersion teachers who teach the Spanish or Spanish and English dual language elementary programs. We also have a high school teacher this year who is qualified, certified for both Spanish and French. And I am conducting interviews this year for a high school chemistry and physics teacher and math. And we have had very good success in the past with finding science. We've had some good biology teachers and good math teachers. So it's not just for the languages, although of course that's the strongest representation that we've had over the 15 years. So in brief, there's kind of a 3-way agreement here, or a 3-way collaboration: KSDE, the ministry programs, and the teachers. So and the districts that hire these teachers. So you enter into sort of an informal contract with KSDE by talking to me and telling me what you need. And then here's what KSDE will do for you. We will interview, select, and recommend a candidate for the position you want to fill. We sponsor the J1 visas, and J1s are available for up to 3 years. We facilitate their license, and first by making sure that they have taken the coursework and are qualified for our Kansas teaching licenses, but we also expedite the process of them getting a license. It's a specialized license for 1, 2, or 3 years. It's renewed on an annual basis. We provide a week-long orientation when they arrive at the end of July. And then we pull them again together later in the fall after they've had several weeks of working in their school. And we have them joined by the teachers who've been here for 2 or are here for their 3rd year. So, for example, you see here our crew who was new last fall. A number, I think we had 10 teachers, and then some of their family members who accompanied them are also included in this picture. And the advisor from Spain in this picture is the woman on the far right in the white jacket, who is a huge help in getting them all oriented to their jobs in Kansas. What the district commits to when bringing in a teacher, first you start out by telling us what you need, what position you need to fill, and that's put into what's called a letter of intent. It's in this instance, if you were to want a teacher for next year, I would want a phone call first, and we would kind of sketch out what you need, and then you would send me a letter of intent that gives me more detailed information that I can pass on to the teacher during the interview process. It is not binding in any way, but it really helps me do a better job of interviewing. And then the district needs to be committed to having a teacher mentor. And the picture on the right is a picture of what the almost at the moment when the teacher and her mentor were introduced to each other. Actually, they'd been corresponding back and forth, and it was like a little meeting your pen pal for the first time. They were just delighted. The woman on the left is from Spain. The woman on the right, elementary teacher here in Topeka, who they'd just been introduced. The district also commits to providing a community mentor who's not necessarily employed by the school, but someone who knows the school well and will help the teacher make the arrangements to get settled, like find a place to live, find a car. There's actually quite a bit of work involved up front to get someone settled quickly so that they can concentrate on their job. The school district, between the time they choose and hire a candidate and the time that candidate arrives, they pay KSDE a $2,000 one-time fee for the participation in the program, and this covers the expenses for up to 3 years of the program. And then the district also commits to doing pre-service training, new teacher training, making sure that they understand up front what is expected in their job, but a continuing training or answering questions as they arise through the year. The teacher comes in committed to fulfilling what is basically a year-to-year contract. They must come in with qualifications of being proficient enough in English, having a bachelor's or master's degree, and many of them do come in with the master's degrees. They have to have at least 3 years of experience in order to even interview or apply to the program. So we found, for example, this year in those teachers that came in new, we had ranging all the way from 3 years to 20 years experience as far as our candidates, our teachers that were hired were concerned. And then it's up to them to make sure that they have transcripts evaluated so that we can have a good process for validating their qualifications for the job. And they renew their license each year that they're here. So it's a very unique experience to have an international teacher in your school, but they do bring lots of culture and add cultural elements to the instruction, no matter what subject it is they're teaching, and broadens the horizons of all of your faculty and your students. So I would love to visit with you more if you are interested at all for this year or want to visit for the future possibilities. Please call me at this point because of the time frame with interviews coming up next week. I would want you to call me at that number, 785-296-1891, that's on the screen. And I'm in the office from 7:30 a.m. till 4:30 p.m. So if you're interested at all, give me a call, and we'd love to find a teacher. I can't promise that we're going to find the perfect chemistry physics teacher for the requests that we have right now, but we're going to do our best. And that's all I have to say about the Visiting International Teachers Program. So now I'm ready to turn it over to Shonda.
Hi, and this is, I think, the last topic, and we'll get through this. I have several slides, but they will go pretty quickly. I'm Shonda, and I am with TASN. I'm one of the TASN providers, and my role is as one of the lead state trainers, as well as the training and coaching coordinator. I've been with the TASN Co-Teaching Project since it started in 2012, and it's part of a 5-year grant, state personnel development grant. Today what we'll be doing is I'll talk a little bit about the training and coaching system, an overview of that. I'd love to share some statewide results with you, some of the data we have from our participating districts, and then share with you upcoming opportunities as well as some of our resources that are available on the TASN site. As I said, the TASN Co-Teaching Project is one of 3 goal areas for the State Personnel Development Grant, including our early career special education retention and the tertiary behavioral supports. Co-teaching is one part of that grant. Since 2012, we have invited districts based on some specific criteria. One of those was the relative location to the training location, and we've tried to have, in our first year, we're primarily in the Northeast, then we moved to the Northwest, Southwest, and South Central, and this year we had all 4 regions, or at least 4 regions of the state, but we also look at a district's evidence of need, and as you think about that, what might you consider as evidence of need, and then also evidence of readiness. Our evidence of need, we based on some data trends based on placement percentages of students with disabilities in the general education settings, as well as student performance trends. We looked at readiness, looking at did the district have some improvement activities in place? Maybe they'd prioritized improving results for students with disabilities or other student subgroups. And also another criteria for readiness is implementation of a multi-tier system of support. Our training content, we do an administration webinar. It's about 2 hours, and that just does a quick overview of the training and lets administrators know what the expectations for participation are. Then we do 1 day of initial co-teaching, and one of the parts to this is, and probably our most critical part, is our coaches. We have district level coaches. They could be from a building or in a district level position, but that individual helps support and sustain that co-teaching in that district, and a district could have multiple coaches. Along with the initial co-teaching and the coaches training, we also provide 1 day of in-district support, and that's where one of our trainers comes in and works with the coach and models an observation and coaching process. Then we also do a co-teaching with para-educators, and that is where we ask districts to send para-educators with their collaborating teachers. And then finally we do a sustainability, which is another day where we ask our administrators and coaches and optional for teachers to come to that training. And that's where they make a long-term plan for how they will have ongoing implementation in their district. We also, based on what we learned early on, We provide supplemental trainings and have had really good outcomes from the supplemental trainings on effective instruction and cooperative structures, as well as differentiated instruction and universal design for learning. Some of the other things along with the training, the grant provides additional things for the district. I talked a little bit about the trainings themselves and the in-district coaching. We also give districts access to an online observation and coaching tool, and that was developed by our coaches and with consultation with Dr. Richard Villa. And we do Coaches Connect webinars once a month. Those are interactive webinars. We provide resources and other materials. And one of the things that a lot of our districts have said have made a difference is that training and planning stipend, and that helps support paying substitutes for days of training, as well as providing planning stipend for time used outside the contract day, so to help support some of that co-teacher planning time. And then as the final two things there are the supplemental training, and then based on a spring survey and the observation data, the TASN evaluation team and the State Personnel Development Grant evaluation team puts together a yearly district report that goes back to the district. And then that district report is used during that sustainability training to make plans and identify areas of strength and areas that need some improvement. Currently, we have 2 state-level trainers and 6 regional trainers, and we this year have a new set of regional trainer candidates, and we have over 80 folks in our coaches network. We've tried really hard since 2012 to expand across the district and get participation as far out as we can. And in the next year, we're hoping to have even more across the state. And before we get into the next part, I'm going to share a couple of different just statewide results from our annual survey, as well as what we see from the statewide responses in our observation tool. Each spring, we send out a survey to all of our co-teaching teams who've attended training. And we ask several questions, and what we see here is the years of experience and years of co-teaching experience. So we have a wide range of teachers who have limited experience in the classroom and some who have over 15 years of experience. Some of the things we ask our co-teaching teams, as co-teachers, are they identifying student strengths? Do they share responsibility for how student learning is assessed? These elements are what have been identified as that collaborative team, as that co-teaching team.
It's not.
What are those elements?
Yeah, let's do it.
Is it?
Yeah, let's do it fine.
Okay.
Carry on, sorry.
Sorry.
We also ask, do they explain benefits to co-teaching to their students and families? And this was identified by our coaching teams as one area for improvement within each of our districts, is how we can communicate the benefits of co-teaching to the students and their families. Some of the things we highlight here, one thing that we noticed is that the co-teachers felt that they were able to engage all students in their class, that bottom bar there. Some things then we asked them also, there's 4 approaches to co-teaching, 4 primary approaches to co-teaching that we asked them to reflect on their use of those 4 different co-teaching approaches. And what we say in training and to our teachers is that the goal is not to be in team teaching all day, but the goal is to be able to move in and out of those 4 approaches, the supportive, parallel, complementary, and team, to be able to move in and out of those 4 approaches based on the needs of the students and what is being taught and the process of learning. However, we do recommend that supportive be the least utilized of the approaches. So we do have some work to do here, and we know that it is teams, as they work together and get to know each other and build that trust and communication, then we do see an increase in their ability to move in and out of those 4 approaches. So one of the things as we used this survey is we asked our coaches network, how can we capitalize on the strengths and identify some of those areas where we needed as a coaches network to help support our co-teachers within each of our districts. And one of the identified areas of strength for sure is that teachers identify that co-teaching is fun and they have fun with the students and each other as they co-teach. So it's a fun and creative way for two people to work together and share responsibility for teaching all students in the classroom. One of the areas that the coaches identified is it's still difficult in getting some of that planning time, so being able to make changes to instruction based on some of those coaching and observation sessions. So even though it is 62% are saying that they do make changes, that is an area we see could have improvement. So again, we go back to that time spent planning with the co-teacher. And one of the questions we had is the amount of time spent planning, are we seeing that impacts how many of those 4 co-teaching approaches were used? And what our co-teachers tell us, as well as what our coaches tell us, we know that the 45 to 60 minutes recommended a week, 45 to 60 minutes in face-to-face planning time that's recommended, does have a direct impact on the teacher's use of the 4 approaches to co-teaching. And then we move from our spring survey to our online observation tool. And the way that this works is a coach goes into a classroom and observes for 20 to 30 minutes, and then sits down and has a feedback session with those co-teachers. And we look for several different things. It's not just having 2 people in a room together and are they getting along. We're also looking at, is it impacting instruction? Are we looking at how are students engaged? And we're looking at teacher and student behaviors. We had 281 observations logged by our coaches across the state from kindergarten through 12th grade. We also had a couple of preschool observations, but those aren't included in this data. You'll see that the majority of the observations tend to be in the middle school and high school. This was good news to us. Only 1% of the observations had none of the approaches, and that means that during the observation, maybe the co-teacher wasn't present or wasn't even, might have been standing and not using their time wisely, but that's in only 1% of the observations. Most of the time we're seeing, and over 50% of the time, we see teachers in a parallel structure that might look like stations or teachers working with groups of students. So that was really good news to us, as well as complementary, and that is where one of the teachers is providing access, might be modeling how to do notes on the board or providing supplementary materials that help support and allow students to gain access to that content. And then in 25% of the observations, we saw the team approach, and that is where walking into the room, you can't tell who might be the interventionist and who is the content teacher. You may not even be able to tell, and some of those are a classroom teacher and a paraeducator. The flow is just such that they're both delivering content, they're both delivering access, and it is interactive and highly engaging. Some of the things we also look at is the multiple intelligence framework. Are we seeing students engage in activities that are beyond just the visual access? Are we seeing students who have, are we seeing the logical, mathematical? Are we seeing some of those other multiple intelligences? And in most of we see at least one of the multiple intelligences used, but in over half of our observations, we saw more than three or more of multiple intelligence frameworks being used. This is an improvement based on some of our previous years, is looking at how much of our teacher talk. We caution that when you have 2 adults in the classroom who are teaching, 2 or more adults in the classroom, one of our cautions is that you have too much teacher talk and you're not really getting input from the students. So one of the things we look at and provide feedback to our co-teachers is really be cautious of having that equal student and teacher talk, because the one who's doing the talking is the one who's doing the learning. With that, we also see a high level of student engagement, but not at all times of the class. We take two measures as we are watching the class. We look at the highest level of student engagement during the observation, and then as well as the lowest level of student engagement. And so we do have a range there, but in most of the observations, you'll see that in 78% of the observations during that highest level of student engagement, we had 90 to 100% of students engaged. And then in the lowest level of student engagement, looking across that, in 33% of the observations, that lowest level during that observation would be 0 to 29%. Some of our other district results, we have districts who report they really like the online observation tool. It's readily accessible, and the data is readily accessible back to the districts. It's live data. That data is available if they have 3 observations, a minimum of 3 observations have to be completed in order for districts to view that. And then one of the questions we continue to ask our coaches network as well as our administrators is, how do we continue to improve our co-teachers' use of effective practices? As I said before, it's not just getting the teachers in the room together and are they getting along, do they trust each other, and are they changing instruction, and are they increasing their use of effective instructional practices? We thought this was a really neat connection. On the left-hand side, you see the survey responses. So this is co-teachers' self-reflection and assessment, and the individual responses from the teachers on the left, and their uses of the 4 different approaches. And then on the right-hand side, those observed, so the coaches' observation of the use of the 4 co-teaching approaches. And we thought this was really interesting. So what this tells us is that the co-teachers are pretty accurate in their view of their use of the 4 approaches, as well as what the coaches in the district are observing. We have had such amazing, it's been a really amazing experience for our 4 years, and we're getting ready to start our 5th year of the grant. But teachers and the relationships that we've seen develop between and among general ed teachers, special ed teachers, English language learning supports, interventionists, related service providers, para-educators, there's a multitude of combinations of how individuals and teams are working together in classrooms to provide those supports to students. We see, and our co-teachers tell us, that they believe that co-teaching is a way to provide effective services to students with disabilities. They see benefits. In 91% of our respondents said that they see benefits for both the teachers and the students. And in 84%, they have a strong relationship with their co-teacher, and over 70% say they have good administrative support. And pictured on the right are 2 of our co-teachers who are they're no longer co-teaching because they co-taught for 3 years, and now they've moved on and have other co-teachers with whom they work, and they are also coaches in their district. And one of the things they said is that it's not just the co-teaching training, but it's all of the other professional learning opportunities that as co-teachers they would attend together and then implement those strategies in their class together. And there they're pictured with their coach as part of that feedback session. On the left, some of the other survey results and the perceptions of co-teaching among our co-teachers is only 50% entered their partnership by choice. And one of the things that we say in our training is that it's not necessarily voluntary. Collaboration is not voluntary. It's what is expected for what we provide to our students and their families. So I'm going to flip back here. So 91% said they saw a benefit and they have a strong relationship, with 50% of them entering it, only 50% entering by choice. So even though they may not have had a choice in it, they're having a positive experience with it. And we know that is what will maintain that change and sustain it over time. We also said one of the areas that we see needs to be improved is that respondents, we know we never have enough time to plan. But the other reality about time is that we may not always be using our time effectively when we are given that time to plan. They believe that administrators do convey their expectations. And one of the things that is looking at, did they have enough time or training in co-teaching in their pre-service or post-secondary training? I'd like to share with you just a few of our upcoming events. April 19th is an open training. The registration is available on the KSDE-TASN.org website, so that's right around the corner. It's in Humboldt. So if there are Southeast districts interested, that would be something that you might want to send a few individuals to. We recommend that you send, if you send a general ed teacher, to send someone who is their collaborator with them. April 25th and 26th is differentiated instruction in Wichita, and Dr. Villa will be here to present that over those 2 days. It's a really great professional learning opportunity, and we encourage our co-teachers to attend that. But anyone else who is interested, that is free, and the registration for that is also available online. June 1st and 2nd is an opportunity for districts who might be interested in moving forward with this, or are just interested in finding out more. June 1st is a co-teaching training in Hayesville, and then June 2nd is a co-teaching coaches training. I will say that if you want to send a coach to the training, they also need to have attended a co-teaching training previously. At the Impact Institutes that Tammy told us about earlier in the session today, we'll be presenting on co-teaching with an early childhood focus. It's on collaboration in early childhood, with co-teaching as one of the ways in which early childhood systems can provide that support. And then one of the things that we're working on right now is planning for our 2016 to 2017 grant year. It's our 5th year of the grant. And our idea there is we really want to move across all parts and all regions of the state. And instead of by invitation, we're going to open it up to application in our final year. We feel that we have our capacity with all of our trainers that we have now, that we can open that up and provide at least 4 different regional locations across the state. And in each of those locations, we'll have an administrator webinar, the entire training series, including that in-district support. I have those plus signs down there by the effective instruction, cooperative learning, and differentiated instruction, because that might be centrally located for our teams. So that one might cause a little bit more travel. We're hoping to, I have June 2016 as when the application process will be open. I'm hoping that we'll have it available before then, but I know that June will be the outside date for us. If you have questions or want to find out more and access more information about the Kansas Co-Teaching and Training Cadre, you can go to ksdetasn.org /co-teaching is our page, and we have some on the TASN co-teaching, the top bullet there under the home page. There is actually an administrator webinar that Dr. Villa produced for us, and it's an archived webinar, as well as our 2015 evaluation summary report. We also record and archive our coaches webinars, and those are under the Coaches Connect. And there's some other resources there if you're interested. So with that, if you have any other questions about the TASN co-teaching project, I'd be more than happy to speak with you, and you can contact me through my email address listed there. And thank you so much.
All right, well, we thank everybody for joining in today. Again, all of these are recorded. You can find them out on my website. We keep a historical, come up with a good
Archive.
word. Archive, there you go, of all of these. So if you miss them, they'll be out there within a day or two, and you can always go back for meeting with your staff or administrators and want to go back and review some of them. They're out there for you to use for updates. Again, email us if you have questions or call, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. Thanks.